Hi, today we're going to look at network security in the corporate office. Basically, network security is, IT security in general is one of the fastest growing parts of corporate technology. There are millions of jobs right now and not nearly enough people to fill them. So this is actually a very useful and a very pertinent bit of instruction here. You can, if you have the credentials, find a job in this field and find yourself in a very, very good position for advancement. So let's go ahead and look at the desktop and see what we got. All right, guys, so we're going to start with the traditional pieces of corporate security. When I say CIA triad, I'm not talking about the Central Intelligence Agency. This is not government intelligence. This is, in fact, the three pieces of the security tripod. And so confidentiality, integrity, and availability. That tripod is the model that forms the basis of corporate security. Confidentiality is the security principle that ensures information is only disclosed to the people who are authorized to view it. Credit card numbers, for example, used in an online transaction should not be visible to anyone else but the customer and the company that's making the funding the purchase. Integrity is the security principle that ensures information is only modified in an authorized manner. For example, a bank customer should not be able to increase their own account balance without adding funds. That should be the authorized manner. Going in the back door and editing the account balance is not authorized. And finally, availability. That's the security principle that ensures information is accessible by authorized users whenever it is required. Not being able to access your personal information online is as bad as someone else accessing it. A patient's medical records, for example, should be available to the patient's doctors whenever the doctors need to access that information. If it's not, then the point of the information or the point of the data is useless. There's no point in having data online if it's not usable. That's the whole purpose, is to make it immediately accessible. And so if it's not, then the IT person has failed in their job, because that is the point of the entire exercise. So don't forget, participation activities count. Tamper detection, that is a device's ability to detect an attempt to physically compromise the device's integrity. Good example of this would be Dell computers. If you open the case on a Dell computer and you change the amount of RAM, you either take some RAM out or put some RAM in, the next time that computer's booted, there'll be a message on the screen that says the amount of RAM has changed. That is tamper detection. Back in the day when RAM was very expensive, people would swipe RAM from their work computers to take home and install into their home computers. And so tamper detection was an important part of protecting the company's assets. An asset control vestibule. That's a small room between a secure area and an outside unsecure area. Basically, this is a room maybe where a security guard sits behind the glass and he buzzes people in. So he lets them in the first room and they have to go up to the window and show their security cards, and then he buzzes them into the second room. And that's how an access control vestibule should work. Social engineering is manipulating people using trickery or deceit, coercing them into revealing information or performing action that would compromise a system security. Someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, can you buzz me in? Can I use your key card? I've forgotten mine and I've got a meeting on the third floor and I got to get up there in 5 minutes. Please help me." That is social engineering. They're trying to manipulate you into letting them in the building without authorization. Dumpster diving. Back in the day before shredding became common, dumpster diving was a primary goal for hackers to find information, because people would write stuff down on pieces of paper, or they would get mail and then they would throw it away and not think about it. And then the sanitation workers would throw it into a dumpster in the back of the building, and hackers could go look through that dumpster and find all sorts of things like passwords and usernames and network diagrams, things like that. Nowadays, shredding is more commonplace, so most of not only is the material shredded, but then it's also taken by the shredding agency and taken off site somewhere else and then disposed of. The little chips are disposed of in a secure location. So dumpster diving is not as prevalent as it used to be, but it still can be pretty useful if the target that you're looking at is not a large corporation or is not that concerned about security. Tailgating is someone trying to follow you through a security vestibule. They walk up to you and they're pretending to not be doing anything suspicious. And then as you go through the gate, they walk in right behind you on your security click or on your card swipe. Piggybacking. That is the act of convincing an authorized person to give access to a secure area. So basically, they come up in the example before and say, hey, I need to get up to the third floor. I've got a meeting. I'm going to be late and I forgot my card. And that is piggybacking. Shoulder surfing. That is physically looking over someone's shoulder as they type their passwords in. They have polarized screen covers that are specifically designed to prevent this from happening, but it used to happen a lot. People, desk was behind, somebody else would look over their shoulder and get their login information. Phishing is a social-based attack in which the attacker fishes for confidential information by sending fraudulent messages, either email or text messages. You can send a message. Basically, if you've ever gotten a letter from from a Nigerian prince who has lottery money that he needs help getting into the United States, that's a phishing attempt. Pretexting, that's when an attacker tries to obtain information by lying. Once again, also, Nigerian prince scam is another example of that. These guys are not Nigerian princes, just saying. Scareware, when a person freaks out and tries to get you also, they try to get you to be nervous. They want you to do something and they need you to do it quickly and quietly. And they are seemingly in a panic state and they want to get you into that panic state that the world isn't going to end if we don't get this done. And so scareware is basically an attempt to scare or threaten a person into performing some action or really revealing some information. Ransomware, essentially an attacker gains control of a device's data and encrypts the data with BitLocker or some other unbreakable encryption algorithm, and then basically charges a ransom. They'll send an email and say, if you want your data unlocked, send me $30,000 in Bitcoin and I'll unlock your data. Now, here's the problem with that. A person that would do that is a criminal. Why would you trust them to unlock your data after you send them the money? They're criminals. They've already demonstrated that they're not trustworthy. There is no reason ever to pay ransomware because, frankly, they're not going to unencrypt your data. They're just going to leave, or they're going to hit you again and say, oh, nope, sorry, we need another 10,000 in Bitcoin before we can unlock this. And they'll keep this going as long as they can. They're never going to unencrypt your data. Once they've got you, they've got you. So ransomware is a thing that the best you can do is have good backups offsite somewhere else. You delete the old data that's encrypted and replace it with new data and update your security and your firewall settings. Baiting is when an attacker uses false promise to steal an individual's information by playing to that individual's greed or curiosity. Nigerian prince, once again, I'll give you $10,000 if you'll let me store my $10 million in your account. So I'm using a false promise to steal an individual's information. What I want is your bank account information, your bank account number and routing number. Participation activity again. Okay, tactics, techniques, and procedures. These are patterns of activities or methods associated with specific attacker groups. This is a forensic profile of the attacker group. People have things, because of the nature of people, they have their favorite methods. You have your favorite method of driving to the gas station every day. You have your favorite route. You have your favorite gas station that you go to. Everybody gets into habits. And if these habits are identifiable, then you can learn a lot about a person from their habits. You can also predict their identity. So tactics, techniques, and procedures are a forensic tool that security analysts can use against hackers to determine their identity. A honey file is a fake file intentionally placed in a location to detect an attacker or malicious insider. Essentially, it's a trap, as Admiral Akbar would say. As a honeypot was a server placed in a demilitarized zone to intentionally attract the attention of hackers, this is a file that's intentionally attracted. There's probably a text file out there that says something like passwordlist.txt. So somebody's immediately going to open that file, and when they do, basically they've time-stamped it and they've identified the location or the IP address that they're coming from. Honeypot, we just talked about, it's a security mechanism. It's usually a server on a network that's inside the DMZ, inside the demilitarized zone. That's the area between the internet outside and the secure area inside. There's usually two routers, one that connects to the internet, one that connects to the secure area, and then that space between the two is called the demilitarized zone. And what it allows you to do is as people break into that, then the forensics that they leave allows them to be identified. HoneyNet is just a network of honeypots, a network of servers inside a DMZ. Once again, you got a participation activity. Once you completed that, then you can move on to section 2 of module 8. All right, guys, so that is an introduction into security. Make sure you get everything completed. Also, make sure you're staying up with the quizzes and the labs and things of that nature. If you have any questions, I can be reached at the Canvas inbox or contact me in class. I'll do my best to help. Have a good day.